biggest impact the Celtics had on the movement of civil rights?
Biggest impact they had. So, well, we've had a couple very important firsts, I think, in African American history. So, the first, I believe, it was the first African American coach in professional sports. I believe North American professional sports was Bill Russell, and he followed Red Auerbach in 1966. I believe. Yeah, that's right. So that's a very important first right there as well. And Bill, I mean, Deej knew Red very well, and we talked a little bit more about Red Auerbach and what he meant, and sort of his philosophy as well there too. But I think the Celtics have always been a leader in that area, in championing civil rights, and also we still continue now to talk more about what we're doing now as well as from a community standpoint as well. That we consider ourselves a championship organization obviously on the court and off the court as well. That area is very important. And then Chuck Cooper was one of the first African American.
Yeah, he was the first.
He was the first, drafted in the NBA, right, and to play in the NBA as well too. So the two very important firsts that we had here in Boston. Very proud of those as well.
And they were the first. The Celtics were the first team to start 5 black players in a game. And so there's been a lot of firsts that in this franchise, and a lot of that's can be attributed to Red Auerbach. I mean, he was very open-minded. He didn't care what the color of your skin was. He just wanted the best players on the court.
The biggest step the Celtics had on the NBA civil rights was being a trendsetter. They were the first at many things, such as being the first team in the NBA to have an all-African American lineup. What role did Russell play on the Celtics civil rights?
Well, what role did he play? Well, he was obviously, in my mind, one of the greatest basketball players to ever play the game. I mean, he revolutionized playing defense. I mean, he could change the tenure of a game the way he could block shots, rebound. A lot of the reasons that the Celtics were famous for the fast break is because Bill could always get a rebound and throw an outlet pass. So the Celtics were known as a running team and a fast break team. And that's primarily because of Bill Russell. In order to be able to run like that, you need to get the ball, and he was certainly very good at getting the ball.
Yeah. I think it's like going back to what Deej said too about Red and philosophy. In that locker room on that court, it didn't matter the color of your skin, background, any of that sort of stuff. It was winning. It was putting banners up in the building. And I think that kind of culture and that philosophy, and I think that there, and Bill, was obviously an idol for all Americans, of any color as well there too, and having him as leadership and what he meant to the Celtics and to the sport in general as well too. I think he was an icon and leader as well, and that kind of equality on the court, transcends not just basketball but equality everywhere. So I think he was a very important icon and figure during that time.
Bill Russell had a very big role as he was one of the best players in the NBA. He started a boycott to allow all of his black players into barrooms or restaurants for pre- or post-game dinners. Do you think that the Celtics had a very big role in the movement of NBA civil rights?
Yeah, I'll just go back, I think, again, to some of those firsts that we talked about a little bit earlier, so absolutely we were on the leading edge there, and being, the first team to play, to draft an African American player, the first team to play an all African American starting 5, the first African American coach, so we're a trendsetter in that sense.
And a lot of those decisions probably were not very popular amongst people. The fact that we lived in an area that there was a lot of prejudice against blacks, and it's not easy to make those sort of decisions sometimes, but Red knew it was the right thing.
It's a different time, a different era. Here there's some issues,
right.
Certainly segregation here up in Boston as well too, and but again, all that mattered to Red and the team was winning.
Right.
putting up championships. I mean, it didn't matter if you could play, put the ball in the hole, or stop someone else from scoring, and you're the best player, he played the best. And that's how it worked, and who you were on that front. And I think that was his philosophy, and that's why we're kind of, in that sense, one of the trendsetters there on that front.
Yes, they did have a very big role because we had a few coaches that are really important in NBA history, starting with Bill Russell, who made it so that his players could all go into a barroom in Indiana by starting up a boycott, and Red Auerbach, who started the first all-African American lineup in the NBA, which started a trend and a first. What was the worst, the toughest time period the Celtics had to step up and fight through during the civil rights time period?
I think probably for the players back in the late 50s and 60s, it was probably when they were on the road sometimes playing in other cities. They weren't allowed to go to eat in certain restaurants. They couldn't stay at certain hotels. I mean, that was a very difficult thing. If you were Bob Cousy, it was okay to stay in a hotel, but if you were Bill Russell or Casey Jones or Sam Jones or some of our other black players, you weren't allowed to. So, I mean, that part was very difficult. But the nice thing is because they were a team and they got along so well, the whites and blacks, that a lot of times if one person was refused to be served in a restaurant, none of them would go in.
The toughest time for the Celtics during the NBA civil rights time was mostly affecting the players. At away games, they would try to go out to dinner, either pre-game or after game, but in an Indiana barroom, not all of their players were allowed in because of their skin tone. So that started a boycott, started by Bill Russell. Who had the biggest step for the Celtics history, civil rights?
Biggest step, or
Biggest.
Red?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like we said, I think Red Auerbach, I mean, he was just, he wanted the best players, and he was colorblind in that sense there as well. So I think just the way he looked at things was very different than a lot of coaches at the time, a lot of people at the time, and the way people were thinking at the time. So I think it just that culture, right, that he kind of brought to the team and to the city, I think I would put him right up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm a lot older than Matt, so I grew up watching the Celtics in the late 50s, and I grew up in Gloucester. And back then, I mean, there were no blacks or Hispanics or anything in Gloucester. I mean, a lot of Italians and Portuguese and Finns and Swedes and Irish, but the Celtics really taught me about race relations and the fact that blacks and whites could get along together, work for a common goal. That really had an impact on me growing up. And I think that's again a tribute to Red and what he created here.
The biggest step the Celtics had in NBA history was Red Auerbach. He was colorblind in a sense, meaning that he only chose players based on their skill, not based on their race or skin tone. He didn't care what your color was or what your religion was. As long as you were a good player, he'd pick you and you'd be in his starting lineup. He was the first coach to have an all-African American lineup.